Well, let me start by probably since we last met, we've seen enormous growth in the programmatic video space. We've expanded into significantly in France, but also into Spain. We're talking in Poland, in Russia. The whole space is continuing to explode. I think data that we use for the targeting at the moment is all cookie-based data, and I think one of the challenges the industries will face as a sort of crossover period, if you like, is that historically people are used to measuring their video campaigns using panels like ComScore and so on, and they, as with all things, they worked very well in what they were doing at the time, but technology has moved on a bit, so we find ourselves now comparing, do we measure with a panel of 15,000 people in a country like Spain, or do we use 22 million cookie profiles that we have integrated into our platform and readily available for targeting and measurement? So I think that's just one of the interesting themes that I'm seeing about how we educate on perhaps a new way of planning and measuring video using proper cookie data as opposed to panel data after the event. What we do before we show any ad, we always sync it against data providers to tell us basically, is this a male, is it female, or so on. And we need that database of cookies to help us do that. It's very developed in the UK, it's moving along very well in countries like France, but once you get into maybe Southern Europe, Spain, Italy, and then into Eastern Europe, Central Eastern Europe, that level of data decreases. So as we found with the display market, we're having to wait for the data market to catch up for us to fully utilise all the benefits of programmatic buying in video. But it is moving fast, and there's an enormous amount of companies that are seeing this as a great big opportunity now. Right? The message is out, so lots of companies are investing in this area. So UK-wise, programmatic video is around 30 to 35% of all of our audience on-demand spend. So a significant piece of what we do, and definitely growing at quite a rate. If I go outside of UK to France, for instance, from 2013 to 2012, we're probably looking at something like 4, 5, 6 times growth in the video space. And one of the biggest areas of success we found is showing how we're moving budget from TV into video and using audience on demand video as the platform to then deliver that spend. In many markets they have mechanisms, planning tools that allow them to show what the incremental reach is of video. So we're actually, the planning process is one that is completely governed by an individual agency, and so they come to the conclusion that they should move a certain amount of their spend from TV into video. Once that decision is made, then the question is, well, what's the easiest way of then delivering all of that spend into the video marketplace? And audience on demand and programmatic buying becomes an obvious choice, rather than going to multiple different individual suppliers. They work through one platform and deliver a singular campaign across all these inventory sources. There is a difference between display and video in terms of the technology. So the big premium publishers are, on the whole, not engaging in what we would pure play real-time bid exchange environments. There will be people that argue that case, and there are big video exchanges like Spot Exchange and so on who will argue otherwise, but on the whole the premium video inventory is not being delivered through exchanges. That said, we're using technology platforms to help us buy that inventory programmatically, and although it's not in an auction, in an auction, what it allows us to do is look at each impression, use data to identify that impression, and then decide what is the best ad to put in front of that impression. So, and if we see an impression we don't want to buy, we do something called pass back, which is give it straight back to the publisher for them to resell elsewhere. I mean, this all happens in milliseconds, so it sounds like a long process, but it's very quick. So it's still data driven, it's still one impression at a time, and so it has a lot of similarities with the real-time bid process. What it allows us to do is create bespoke relationships with the premium publishers. So the premium publishers feel safe that they are dealing with us. They're dealing with audience on demand. They're not releasing inventory into a wider exchange for anyone to buy. They are, and it allows us to help maintain the right sort of CPMs and the right sort of brands appearing on their content and so on. So the answer is a sort of hybrid of real-time bidded, but it is still very much a programmatic process, and the premium publishers are involved in it. The one exception, as I think probably I mentioned last time, is that generally speaking it does vary by market and it does vary by company, but the TV companies are less enamoured with the idea of programmatic trading, as they see it as a threat to their control they have over their own inventory. So we'll see how that plays out. We hope that we find different ways of working with them, but at the moment they're being a little bit more protective over their inventory.